On a crisp Saturday morning in New York City, Madison Lively strode through the marble doors of Elise Couture, the most exclusive boutique on Madison Avenue, the epitome of Upper East Side elegance. A tall, willowy woman with platinum blonde hair, an Hermes Birkin swinging from her arm, and designer sunglasses shielding her cool, appraising eyes. Her wealth not something new, but rather a birthright, stitched into every inch of her upbringing, worn like a second skin. And inside the boutique, the scent of expensive leather and imported perfumes floated through the air as staff members in sleek black uniforms flitted discreetly among racks of high-end clothing, while Madison wrinkled her nose at a jacket on display, its price tag dangling at $14,000, 0 cents, pocket change to her, as she had come today to find something unique for her upcoming charity gala, a night where rich people congratulated themselves on giving back. And as she browsed, a young black woman approached her with a warm, professional smile, saying, "Good morning, miss. Is there anything I can help you find today?" Her voice smooth as silk, and Madison glanced up, giving her a once-over, seeing only a simple black dress and blazer, that to her made the young woman blend into the furniture, just another worker. And she replied curtly, "No, I know what I'm looking for," causing the sales associate to step back politely, saying, "Of course. My name's Amara. Let me know if you need anything." To which Madison barely nodded, already turning away, but a wicked impulse sparked inside her as she was in the mood for entertainment, so she plucked the most expensive gown in the store from a display, a cascading crimson piece from a Parisian designer, and handed it to Amara without a word, commanding coldly, "Hold this." And although Amara's smile faltered for the briefest moment, she recovered quickly, cradling the gown carefully in her arms. The morning wore on, and Madison continued her game, ordering Amara to fetch dresses, shoes, and jewelry as though she were a personal servant rather than a sales associate, making snide remarks about Amara's limited fashion sense, and clicking her tongue in exaggerated annoyance whenever Amara didn't anticipate her whims, while other shoppers began to notice, some looking away in embarrassed discomfort and others watching with morbid fascination. Yet through it all Amara remained composed, her movements graceful, her expression unreadable, and at one point Madison, slipping into a tone dripping with condescension, asked mockingly, "Tell me, do you even know what it's like to own something worth more than a month's rent?" To which Amara, setting a pair of Manolo Blahnik heels on a velvet bench with precise care, replied quietly, "I believe value isn't always measured in dollars, miss," causing Madison to laugh, tossing her hair in disdain, and say, "Spoken like someone who's never seen real money." And satisfied with her display of superiority, Madison eventually chose a few items, totaling nearly $50,000, 0 cents, and swept toward the register expecting Amara to trail after her meekly, but instead another associate, a nervous young man, came to ring her up, and when Madison, irritation flashing in her voice, asked, "Where's the other girl?" the cashier stammered, "Amara. She doesn't usually do checkout," prompting Madison to sneer. "Figures," as she signed her receipt with a flourish and glanced over her shoulder to see Amara standing near the dressing rooms, hands folded neatly, her head held high. Later that afternoon, Elise Couture hosted a private tea for their most esteemed clients and partners, and Madison, naturally, was among the invited. So she sauntered into the back salon where crystal chandeliers glimmered and champagne flowed freely, the air thick with the scent of roses and the low murmur of elite conversation. And as Madison sipped her champagne with an air of practiced disinterest, Elise Duval herself, the boutique's owner, took to the small stage at the front and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Today we celebrate someone truly extraordinary," prompting Madison to suppress a yawn, already bored, until Elise continued, "Allow me to introduce Amara Sinclair, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and our silent partner for the past 2 years." And Madison, mid-sip, choked violently on her drink, coughing into her napkin as a stunned hush fell over the room and all eyes turned to the stage, where Amara stepped forward, now dressed in an elegant emerald gown that accentuated her regal bearing, her smile gracious and her presence magnetic, while Elise explained, Amara recently sold her tech startup for $800 million, 0 cents. She's here to gain first-hand retail experience before launching her own luxury brand. And as applause erupted across the salon, Madison's face burned with humiliation as she shrank into the shadows, praying Amara wouldn't notice her. But even across the room, Amara's gaze found her easily, not with malice or triumph, but with a calm, knowing sadness that struck deeper than any words ever could. After the event, Madison fled into the street, the cold air slapping her cheeks as she stumbled through the sidewalk crowds, feeling exposed and humiliated, the weight of her own actions pressing down harder than any winter chill. And she couldn't escape the memory of how she had treated Amara like a servant, blind to the truth that she stood before a woman whose accomplishments and spirit dwarfed anything Madison could ever claim as her own. And for the first time in her sheltered, polished life, Madison questioned the armor she had always worn. Her wealth, her privilege, her assumptions, each one now feeling brittle and hollow. And she couldn't stop replaying the morning in her head, every rude comment and every dismissive gesture flashing before her mind's eye, each one sharper than the last, until the question screamed within her, how must it have looked to everyone? How had she become the very thing she once claimed to despise in others? And so she wandered aimlessly through Central Park, the golden autumn leaves swirling around her feet like silent judgments, while meanwhile back inside Elise Couture, Amara remained as gracious as ever, accepting congratulations and warm handshakes without arrogance, and when a young employee shyly approached to apologize profusely for the morning's incident, Amara only smiled and said, "It's easy to treat people with respect when you think they can do something for you. And the real test is how you treat those you think can't." And though Amara spoke the words simply, without bitterness, they would later echo beyond the marble walls of that boutique, quoted in magazines, splashed across social media feeds, and repeated in leadership seminars around the world as a quiet revolution in what true dignity meant. A week later, Madison returned to Elise Couture, but not to shop, and she waited until the store was quiet before approaching Amara, who was seated at a table in the back reviewing designs with a serene focus that only deepened Madison's sense of shame, and her heart hammered in her chest because she had never apologized for anything in her life, never had to. But today was different, so summoning every ounce of courage she had, she said, "Miss Sinclair?" her voice trembling. "I owe you an apology," and Amara looked up, her expression open but cautious, as Madison pressed on, her words stumbling over each other. "I treated you terribly. I assumed things about you, about your worth, and I was wrong." And for a long moment, Amara studied her, not with judgment, but with a quiet grace that only made Madison's throat tighten more. And then Amara smiled softly and said simply, the two words that lifted a weight Madison hadn't even realized she was carrying. And she left the boutique feeling lighter than she had in years, a sensation so foreign it almost brought tears to her eyes. And that encounter marked the beginning of a true change in her, because she started attending workshops on diversity and inclusion. Not to be seen, not for the sake of appearances, but to listen, to learn, to sit in the discomfort of her own blind spot. And she volunteered at local charities without seeking publicity, serving meals, tutoring children, and most importantly, she learned to see people for who they truly were and not the price tags they wore. And as for Amara, she went on to build her luxury brand into a global powerhouse. one that celebrated authenticity, resilience, and grace, and their paths would cross again, in different places and under different circumstances, always reminding Madison of the day she learned the most valuable lesson money could never buy: humility.